Shanna Kramer here with Creatively Uncorked. Today I'm going to walk you through how to paint Summer Lemonade, and this is a painting in your CreativeBoxLIVE subscription box. And the original, you will see it right there next to my head, so you can use that as your reference. In your kit you will have also gotten a reference photo, and you would have gotten a traceable as well as a transfer sheet. So if you want to go ahead and get that transferred onto your canvas before we start, that would help speed us along considerably. So I'm just going to go right on ahead and get started. If you are watching this live right now and you have to catch up, don't worry, you can always hit pause. You can always rewatch it later. This painting or this video is going to be available for you to watch for as long as you are a member. All right, so we'll get started on this. I want to start with the background. So I'll start at the top left. The reason I start with the background first, we've got a lot of light colors in here on that jar. And if we start with the lighter colors first, they might tend to get too light, too pasty. And that's never a good look. So I always try to start with my darkest darks, and that really helps me, forces me to push the values on my lighter colors. Okay, so take any of your bigger brushes. Make sure you have a cup of water and a paper towel handy. I have all of those things just slightly off screen. I wanted to be able to zoom in on the painting though, so you can see it a little bit more clearly. There's a lot of detail to it, so we'll just go ahead and get started. All right, so my thing with painting is I like to stick my hand in wet paint a lot. Okay, maybe I don't really like doing it, but it happens. It happens a lot. So since I'm right-handed, my workaround for this is to start at the top left of my painting and then work my way down to the bottom right, because that way there's just less of a chance of me sticking my hand in the wet paint. And then even worse than that is putting my hand down on another spot on the canvas and dragging that wet paint around. So this is just a method of painting to be a little bit more careful for that. And I'm starting with a little white and a little teal at that top left corner and then fading to darker. And notice I'm keeping my brush strokes really pretty brushy. And this is to, there we are. Just follows it just a little more carefully. Okay, so the reason that we're doing this really brushy is in case we make a mistake and we need to go back and match our background color. If you have a brushy background color, it's super easy to blend in and to match. Super easy. Like, you can get away with it and no one will ever know that you made a mistake and had to fix it. So that's one reason I really like to have a brushy background. Actually, brushy painting entirely. So this painting was originally done by Grace Highness, one of our artists, and it's extremely detail-oriented. I'm not a detail-oriented person. If you are, this is exactly the painting for you. Although, whoops, I don't need to go that far down, do I? I do not. See, already, I painted a little too far down there. I must have forgotten a line when I was tracing. All right, I'll just go up along. You know what, I'm just gonna rotate it so that I can get to that angle a little bit better. Propping up my arm here so I don't stick my hand in the wet paint. And another pro tip, avoid drinking coffee before this step. True story, true story. Okay, the shakier you are, the less straight your lines are. So that's one reason for using a flat brush. I like this flat brush, if you can see this, because it makes really good straight lines. And look at how thin that is. You can even flatten it out to be thinner. And then you can do really super skinny lines too. Counterintuitive, I know, but yes, the skinniest lines can be done with the biggest brushes, as long as they're flats. Okay, I still have that second side of that straw. There we are. My first line got a little wonky, so instead of trying to fix it, I'm just going to wait until I come back in with my my straw colors and then paint over it. One nice thing about acrylic paint, which is what we're using in our kits, it's forgiving. You can paint over it and over it. And also in this month, which is July 2020, the colors that are in this box are all opaque colors, which is not something we normally do. But this month you're getting, and for August, you're also getting all opaque colors. And one of the benefits of opaque colors is, I kind of think I want to just add a little touch of that background color right down in here, and then also right down in here, and then maybe kind of right in there. Okay, so if you're working with a actual like transparent glass, like the jar that we're painting today, you are going to see some background color through it. So I just want to give a couple of hints of that background color, but without going overboard. Okay, I think I'll stop there and give my brush a rinse. Looks like I poured out way too much paint. I'm used to working on a bigger canvas. All right. Next color. All right, so we're gonna mix up this brown. So you don't have brown in your kit, but you do have yellow, a little puddle of yellow. You do have red. I'll add a little puddle of red. I'm probably adding way too much paint here. Don't worry, you have plenty of paint. You can paint these several times even if you want to, and I'm sure you'll still have enough paint. Okay, so I'm mixing approximately equal amounts of red, yellow, and blue. Give my brush a good swish there. And I hate mixing with my bristles. Here, I'll bring this up so you can see it. I really don't like mixing with my bristles because it gobs up the bristles. And if the paint gets up inside the ferrule, inside this metal part, and it dries there, that's how you know, sometimes you get old brushes that their bristles just stick every direction. That's why. It's because there's paint dried in the ferrule. You can never get that out again. When your bristles start sticking every which direction, start over, just get new brushes. There's really no hope for saving it. One trick you can do to avoid, see look at that, nice job us. One trick you can do to avoid letting the paint dry on your brush is to leave it in your water cup. Once you're done using your brush, just go ahead and leave that in your water cup. Not forever, because these are wood handles, so wood handles are also going to warp and also ruin your brushes if you leave them in the water for too long. So you definitely don't want to leave it there forever, but you can leave your brushes in the water for the entire time you're working on your painting, because let's just say that you're going to spend an actual 90 to 120 minutes on this painting, which would be plenty of time to get every last little speck of detail that you want. Plenty of time. But I know some people, the people who like the really detailed paintings, are typically people who like to spend time on details. And I know there are some people who just absolutely love details. They wish all paintings were nothing but details. And that's just the fun part for them to work on. And if that's you, then you might want to not leave your brushes sit in your water the entire time, or paint in a couple of sessions instead of sitting through it all at once, because whoo boy, it's gonna be an arm workout and a back workout. And your eyes will go buggy if you sit for too long. All right, so here we are. All right, I'm gonna rotate this around again so I can get that other side. And now you can see what's happening here with this brown is it's getting a little, it's a little runny. All these colors a little kind of runny, and almost all dark browns are transparent. After I just got done telling you we're using all opaque colors. But this is, you can definitely see the canvas through it, and you can definitely see the brush strokes. Don't worry about that right now. Just keep painting, okay? So this is what we call a base coat. This is our base layer. This is our underpainting, essentially. We're doing it, we're just making all the brown and just putting all the brown on the canvas. And that way when we do our second layer will nicely cover up these brush strokes, and it will, we can do any of our color adjustments then. So we're going to want shadows, we're going to want some highlights, and all of those things we can do in the second coat. We can try adding a little bit of white to it right now to thicken it up a bit. That is certainly an option, and I'm thinking about it right now. See, look at that nice flat brush and how you can make those straight lines. And I always try to use the biggest brush possible for any task, and that looks like I'm not going to probably get that tiny space with this big brush, so I'll just go ahead and move on. All right, brush back in the water. I'll try this little small flat. This is one of them that's in your kit as well. When you're starting out with your brushes, make sure you're dunking them in water. If they're brand new, which they probably aren't by now because this is the 4th painting, but give it a good swish on the bottom of the cup. Rinse out anything that might be in the bristles, because it's very common, extremely common for manufacturers to put some sort of a sizing or some sort of a bristle stiffener to help them during transport, during shipping. So be aware of that. It's generally not something that you want in your paint on your painting, so just give your brushes a good wash as soon as you open them up before you use them. All right, there we are. We have our background. Looking pretty good. And I'm going to continue to color block, which is, color blocking is exactly what we're doing right now. Color blocking is filling each area with the color that needs to be in that area. Simple, right? So next color I'll use is going to be some yellow. I'm also going to keep that brown handy because I might add in a touch of that brown for the shadow. I'm just going to get a touch of red over here in case I need to reach for that color. Some of my yellows I notice are a little bit oranger. And I'm also going to switch to my filbert. The filbert is the round, it's a flat with the round bristles, which seems to work a little bit better for the rounded areas. Okay, taking a little white in this too. So yellow, which is pretty darn yellow. I'll take a touch of that red, orange it up a bit. I know these are lemons, but they're really ripe lemons. Okay, right on around the edges, keep on going with my color blocking. Actually, you know what? As long as I'm just color blocking, there, I'm just gonna fill them in. Fill them right in. We'll save the details for another layer, right? That's how color blocking works. Now my undercolors are a little bit wet, or my surrounding colors I should say, definitely that brown is. So if you accidentally bump up your brush up against the brown, that's okay. Just wipe it off in the paper towel and keep going. You have a paper towel, right? So I'm just adding a little more white to my yellow, and then I'm coming up here to my lemonade jar. Got a couple of lemons in there that need to get filled in. See that? You could definitely see that I picked up some brown. So I'm just going to wipe that off on my paper towel. There we are. Just go ahead and fill that in. One more half lemon here inside that jar. I'm just picking up a little white and mixing in a little white with this yellow each time. Okay, and then the last lemon. The one that's hanging on the outside of the jar. All right, beautiful, perfect, lovely. Now what I'm going to do is take a lot of white, mix it in with a little yellow. And this is going to go into the background of the jar. And because of the white, it's going to be a little more opaque, it's going to cover up your lines, it's going to cover up your background colors. If that's not something you want, maybe avoid a couple of spots with color. Nope, not gonna touch it. And also, if you have too much paint on your brush, just wipe it back off. Too much paint on your brush, that's one of those things that's gonna mess you up every time. Part of the ways that you can control paint is by not using too much at once. See that? Got a big old glob of paint there and got a little out of control. The good news is I can come back and fix that with the turquoise, because that's kind of part of the reason that I did that with my edges, right? With my background, I made it that brushy the brushy looking background. And that was exactly the reason for that. So I'm going to let that one go, and we'll come back and deal with it later. Plus, you know, in case you make a mistake, I want to show you how to fix it. Yeah, that's it. I did it for a lesson. So now these straight lines down the side, this is one where, you know, you might have an easier time of this if you switch back to your flat. Flats are meant for straight lines. Filberts are meant for organic shapes, like lemons. Lovely. All right, last little piece of yellow. Actually, it's not really even yellow, is it? Nah, I'm not gonna fill it in. A touch, again, just a touch because color reflects color. All right, so I'll let that go. And the next part, I'll have to get out some blue here pretty soon, it looks like. Okay, so I'm just gonna clean out my brush just by wiping it off in the paper towel, going into the water. So you can see in my water it's full of every brush that I've used so far. And all of these colors need to dry a little bit, except for, I think I can get a little more white. I'm gonna switch to my small flat, my little skinny little flat brush, that's the one. And I'll take some glob of white, put it there next to my red. And we've got some pink stripes we can put on this. A little more white. All right, that is a nice, good pinky color, isn't it? Trying not to go overboard, but maybe I want to go overboard, it's fine. It's a nice splash of contrasting color. All right, so this, I'm basically going to fill it all in pink. I can do it. And then add the white stripes in over it. Sorry for the shakiness, I'm leaning on the table a little here. You know what I'm going to do instead? I'm going to switch to this big flat. That's what I'm going to do. Good rule of thumb to always use the biggest brush that you can for whatever thing you're painting. See, look how much easier that is. Look, just tapping in those straight lines. Okay, I'll flip it around, do the same thing on the other side, because it's always easier to do straight edges when you can see them, right? Instead of when you're covering them up with your hand. Might be a little more challenging for you guys to see, but maybe, maybe not. You might. Looks like you have a pretty good view there. See, that's the thing about straight lines. They just take a little bit more patience than wiggly lines. All right, there is my red. Now I'm just going to pick up some straight white. Some nice white on that. And then I'm going to, flip her around again because I think I want my stripes to go. You just have a slight curve to show the roundness of the straw. And this is a curve up then down. More paint. The only time that too much paint won't mess you up is when you don't have enough paint. What? This is getting so complicated. Paint, no paint, what are you talking about? I'm guessing this is at least your 4th painting, so you know exactly what I'm talking about. All right, so now I've got some stripes on the straw. And I do see where I have a shadow that I'm going to probably want to add in at the end, but not yet. Give that one a good rinse. So I think I want to add in some jar shapes, or I'm not done color blocking. I still have blank canvas there. So what I'm going to do next is just fill that in. Now I'm going to grab some blue. Here's my palette with all of my colors mixed up on here. I'm going to grab some blue and I'm going to make that green. So the green here is a really kind of a mossy green. Let's call it a mint green. How about that? All right, so it's a mint green. And the mint green is mixed with kind of dull, dark colors. I'm gonna need a little more yellow for that too. And by dull dark, I mean this blue, this particular blue. Because we can make a bright green. We can make a really bright green by mixing yellow and turquoise. But today we don't want bright green. We want mossy mint green. There you go, you see that? Dark mossy mint green. So I'll add a touch of white. And you see how I'm doing this with the white? I'm just picking up a little white from where it's at and bringing it over to the color I'm mixing it into. That way I can keep most of my white as clean and clear as possible. And see what I just did there? I just stuck my brush right in the middle of your paint. That's a bad idea to pick up your color on just the edge of your color puddle. That way you aren't messing up your whole color. See with this blue, I still have good, clean, clear blue right there. And then I have my green mixed right next to it. That's how you do it. So now, just gonna wiggle that brush in there and just kind of fill that in with that mint color. So I'm just kind of using the edge of the brush and just kind of scribble, 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 which, by the way, is my favorite painting technique, the scribble technique. Yep, love it. And I'm also gonna put in a big old blob up there. And we're gonna cover that up with a little bit of highlight. And then I'm going to put another little bit up here. Actually, I think I want more yellow in that one. I want that one to be lighter and yellower, brighter. So this one, we'll just add a little, that's that mint. You know what? I think maybe a touch of turquoise in this one. Like I was saying earlier, color reflects color, so whatever, when you have a color one spot, you use it somewhere else as well. So now I have a little bit of that background turquoise in my mint that's in my jar. So this is just kind of a piece of floating mint in there. We're also going to have a couple of ice cubes in there. Okay, and we'll go with that. The next couple of things I can do, I'll want to take a blue, not that dark though, I'll need a little bit of white, and I'll add in some of the colors around the edges of my jar. Just a small little touch of white, don't need a lot. Gonna mix it in with some blue for a slightly lighter dark blue. Still want dark blue. Okay, and this is just for the detail edges, so I'm going to cover up my straw, for example. So I want it to be dark. I'm adding the white to make it opaque enough to cover. Trying not to stick my hand in the background because I know I've got all wet paint in there right now. And that line I'm just going to do later. All right. So I've got a couple of little details that are tougher to do with this size brush, so I'm going to save those for a minute and do a few more lines. So I can do like a little kind of almost a glass shadow right on the edge. And then I can do another little right in front. I'll be doing some lighter colors too, so it's not just all going to be this dark. I can do a darker edge right over here. Notice I'm leading with the skinny edge on this brush. Lead with the skinny edge. That's the way these brushes work. And I want to have the back bottom of that jar. That's actually way more important than you would ever suspect. But if you don't have that back bottom of that jar, it can't look like a jar. That's like the one thing that makes a jar look like a jar, or clear glass look clear. You have to have that bottom back reflection. I'll do another bottom right there. I think I want this one to be actually really dark because it's up against that really dark brown. So there we are. And we can even do a couple of edges here. All right, so I still have highlights to add, so don't worry about that. I'll get those highlights in there. But for now I have those dark blues, and cleaning off the brush, just wiping off on my paper towel there. And I'll pick up some white. Now the white is going in between the blues while the blue is still wet. Hopefully it can pick up some of the blue and blend it a little. Flip it around there and get some more. Okay, so that I think is a pretty good start, and I can get some more of that detail later. Now I think while this background is slightly wet, I can tackle those ice cubes. Now the ice cubes are going to be a lot of white, but not too white. Let's see. So we got an ice cube like right about there, and it just lightens it up a little, and it kind of comes out over here. And we're going to get more light reflections up here toward the top. There's a lot less lemonade, for example, and a lot more background showing through. So when we add our highlights on these ice cubes, now these highlights are going to be blue because of, you know, the jar is a little bit blue, so some of that's going to carry through. We are also going to see some of the turquoise because it's going to be reflecting the background color as well. That always happens with glass. You're always going to see reflection of that. And our ice cubes should be kind of touching because ice cubes always float together, right? They never float separate. And this one is just bumping right up there against that mint. So we've got a couple of ice cubes up at the top now. There we are. Yeah, I think that's looking pretty good for ice. Now I'm cleaning out my brush, rinsing it in the water, give it a good swish on the bottom of that cup. Okay, I'm just dabbing it to dry here. And let's see, do I want to do some white? Yes, I do. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pick up some white, just pure white. And this is where I'm going to add in my highlights. I don't need to add them all in right now. You know what? I don't need to add any of them right now. I think I'm actually going to hold off with that one. Okay, brush back in the water. Let's step back, take a look, see where we're at. Okay, looks like my brown isn't dry yet. The background is nice. The turquoise is nice and dry. Brown isn't dry. My mint leaf there isn't dry yet. So I think because my lemons are the only thing that's dry, I'll go ahead and work on those. So finding a new brush. Let's see check out the old brush collection here. So right now my favorites are either this larger round one or the smaller filbert. Smaller filbert would work, but I've also got these straight lines in here. So for that, I think I'll go with the round. And I just have all of my spare brushes over here in a cup, just so I can decide whichever I want to use whenever I want to use it. Let me see. So comparing this to the original up in the corner, I've got quite a bit of shadows in there, and I've got some highlights. And which should we do first? Shadows, obviously. Highlights last. Trick question. All right, big filbert. Big filbert, because I'm going to redo a lot of this. Big filbert, I'm going to take a touch of that brown. Let's see, do you see it? Does it look like it's matching? Touch more red. Warm it up a little. And maybe a little too warm. So now I've kind of got every color mixed in there. Is it too dark? Maybe. We'll give it a try. Oh, too much paint on the brush though. We talked about that already. Can't have too much paint on the brush. Just wiping that back off there. So now I'm coming just around the edge. Let the highlights show. Okay, and then here I go just brushing on some of these shadows right down here, so I can get kind of a just little dabs, because you know the lemons, they kind of have a little bit of a rough skin anyway, so I'm just gonna use that and just build on that texture a little bit, because I think it's, if you make your lemons too smooth, they just don't look like lemons anymore. So there we go, kind of rough that one up a bit. And I think we kind of have a similar thing going on right around here. We've got some little stripies, and as long as I have this color on my brush, I'm just gonna go with it. I'm just gonna use it. I'll add a little more variation here too, sure. But I just want to kind of get some color down. Let's see, I also have that color kind of, you can see a little, there. Get a little less paint on that brush there. And I'll even take a touch of it right up here on that top peel, just to give it a little shade, give it a little depth. I think I want to go even a little tish darker. Nope, got some white in there. Do not want white in there. Stop, clean the brush, start over. See, so what happens is when I'm trying to build my layers, the layers on top should be not quite so white. They shouldn't be so, because you're putting white on top of it to build a shadow, that doesn't really work. So if you're building your highlights, absolutely use white. If you're building your shadows though, avoid white. Completely avoid white. All right, so here I go. Had to switch brushes, the other one was dirty. Didn't want to stop and clean it. All right, so here I go, just adding a little, that little detail in there. I don't want to add too much detail on the lemons in the cup. They just should exist and behave themselves, but not attract too much attention. So not going to add a lot there. Okay, this one over here, I might add just a little touch if I can. And I'm just kind of mostly going right around the edge of that. Just a couple little darker areas. Okay, and then I'll add in my little stripes. Little section details. Whatever you want to call them. You know, like everything else in life, they probably have a name. I just don't know it. Gonna add a little more touch of red in here. I feel like I have a little more control over my color if I can add a drop of red. Okay. Oh, not there. Let's see. Yeah, I think I want to add a little more depth up here, if I can. There. This will be a nice warm color. So this will get me some of that warmth back. Not too much of that, because it's a lemon after all. Come on, man. Let's see, I'll get some of this warmer color down in here. All right, and I think that is about enough fussing around with lemons. Before I add the highlights anyway. So in the meantime, I want to come back and I want to fix that area right around that jar. Get some of that turquoise. This is another reason too, when I'm starting up at the upper left corner with the white and turquoise, and then by the time I get down to the design, it's just turquoise. So that actually helps a lot when you're touching up your design. So already I'm doing touch-ups, already I'm adding some background color. See? Very nice, just like that. All right, so now we'll let that dry a minute. What else can I do on this? Well, I guess that means it's time for highlights. Take a little bit more white. And I'm talking about the highlights of my lemons, of course. All right, so here on my plate, I've got my, all of this is lemon color. Crazy, right? Okay, a teeny dot of yellow, and I'm taking a bunch of white. Lot of white, little yellow. Okay, and then I want to go to, hold your breath. Boom, just like that. Okay, breathe. A couple more of those. Some segments. See, not so tough. I'll definitely want to add a few more highlights in there, but not yet. Okay, down here. A little white, a lot of yellow. Wait, backward. Little yellow, a lot of white. Couple of segments. And I'm stopping and picking up paint every time on these little thin lines, because you have to have paint right on the end of your bristles. By the time you get across that little orange, you've already used it all up. Light, light, light touch with the brush. More pressure makes a thicker line. We're trying for the thin lines right now, right? So light, light, light. I'm gonna add a little, you know what? I'm even gonna take a tiny little more yellow there. And this is gonna be the highlight on my lemon over there. So this is gonna be a little more textury than the original lemon, because that's how I paint. And I didn't paint the original. And I also finger paint. There. Now I've got a little more yellow in there. Well, isn't that lovely? Got some yellow, got some dots of highlight in there. Let's do some actual dots of highlight. Da 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 da. Because they have the little orange skin peel. It's called orange skin, because that sort of texture. How about we call it lemon skin, right? Because we know better. So that is pretty okay. Dunk in some water, picking up some more of that liner color, or the, what do you call it, our lemon highlight color. And I think I'm going to add some of the highlights on this little piece of lemon over here. Again, I don't want to go overboard. I think it might show a little too much on the original. It's meant to be just something little floating in the jar, you know? So I just want to lighten it up a little there. Give it a little texture. And here we go with all my improv highlights that I want to add to those lemons. So I'll just add a little touch up here, a little touch in there. Kind of makes lemons look a little juicier if you got a few more extra highlights. I'm trying to keep my highlights here on the upper left of everything, as much as possible anyhow. I mean, when you're working with a lot of reflective surfaces, like jars, for example, you're going to get a lot more bounced light, so your highlights are not all going to be one direction. You're going to get a few different highlight areas. But for simplicity's sake, right, we're just going to keep it up in the upper left for the most part. Okay. Well, that's not so bad now, is it? I think I want to try to kill some of the detail up in that orange lemon. Piece of fruit hanging off my glass. There. I'm just going to blend a little bit of a white yellow over it. We had some nice detail, but kind of overkill, and it's attracting too much attention. The jar is the star of the show, not that weird little lemon. All right, looking good. Okay, I think what we could do now is go on to some highlights of that ice. So like I said before, we want to have some turquoise highlights because it's going to be reflecting the background, And then we're going to want some blue highlights because it's going to be reflecting the color of that jar. And I know most modern day mason jars are actually very clear, but the older mason jars are often tinted blue or green. In this case, it's blue because you can tell by that's what color our shadow colors are. So I have my tiny little skinny round is what I went with this time. And I'm kind of adding a lot of water. I'm taking a little puddle of this turquoise, mixing a lot of water into it. And that way I can just spin the brush and pick up that color, and I'm picking up a very thin, pointy brush full of color. And then when I'm going into my highlights on my ice, I'm just gonna make a few little, oop, I think that's actually too thick. I wonder if I have a smaller brush. I do have one smaller, but it's not a lot smaller, so I don't know if it's, I also have this one. Yeah, I'm not sure about that one either. I'll try it. I think that this teeny tiny baby little filbert might be a little too stiff, but I'll find out. Stiff brushes work better with stiffer paint, by the way, in case you didn't know that. Okay, so I've got my, I guess that worked out pretty well. And then I'll go in and take some blue. And I don't want any white in this blue, I just want pure blue mixed with water. There, very teeny tiny amount of it on the brush. Make sure it's not drippy. Yeah, okay. So now I feel like my ice might be a tish too prominent. You know what's an easy fix for that? White paint. All right, so I'm just gonna go around the edges of my jar there and add my details that I've kind of gotten lost. Because we started with our blue, right? And then we came back and we added our white with the intention of blending in with the blue. And we succeeded, it blended. So now we just need to bring back a little bit to that blue. There we are. And let's see if I can straighten up a couple of edges here while I'm at it. So this little tiny stiff filbert brush, really good for details. Really good for details that you want to be perfect. Probably would work really well on those lemons, I bet. So when you're rewatching this video later and you're repainting those lemons, try the little filbert brush for the details on it. All right, so I want to add the shadow side of my straw, and I think since I already have blue on the brush, I'll keep it. And my shadow is going to be purple. So I'm just mixing in a little red and blue here. And it seems like I already have a touch of white, but I might take it in a little bit more because I want it to be a little bit darker, but not a lot darker. Let me just erase that. Let me think about it a moment. Let me try a different color. What if I was to take that pink, go with pink, and add a little turquoise? And what if that's my shadow color? Yep, it's a winner. Let's try it. Oh, way better. Way, way better. Yeah. Because anytime you can, like I said, here we go back to the color reflects color again. And you know how we have that turquoise in the background? So we're basically mixing turquoise in everything. And I'm just mixing turquoise with pink to get my shadow color here on this straw. One way to get really, really straight shadows on that straw, use your giant flat brush. Okay, tiny touch up right there. Right there. All right. So, do I also want to highlight on that straw? I think I might actually. So I'm gonna take some white. I'm going back to my big fat flat brush, the big one. It's my favorite brush. And I'm just gonna add some little highlights in there. I'm gonna go right over those straws, or I'm sorry, those ice cubes. And let's see, well, I have that big old brush and a tiny bit of white. Mix in some water. Probably can't see what I'm doing here. So I've got really, really watery white. And you might be able to tell just by looking at those bristles how watery it is. And I'm gonna see if I can just lay some of that in on those ice cubes again. Just using the corner of the brush and just kind of tapping in some of those highlights. So this is just kind of a transparent white. Just gonna put a few spots just to, because it'll fade when this dries. It looks prominent now, but it won't once it dries. Whites just aren't that great anymore. I sound old, I know, but so back in the day, there used to be some really, really good colors of white, and you know, they were toxic, lead white and all that. And so those aren't really colors that you can get anymore. And since this is Creatively Uncorked, we want all of our paints to be non-toxic in case somebody drinks our paint water, right? Happens every day. So just to prevent somebody from getting sick from their paint, we want to use non-toxic colors. So that also leaves us with weak whites. Yep, you remember that. Weak whites because they're non-toxic. Okay. So I have some more white highlights I want to get onto my glass, and I think that might be the end of the glass. I'll take another look once I get these highlights on here and see. Lovely. Might need to get out some more white here. See, I got way too much brown and not enough of any other color. Oh, way too much turquoise too, I guess. So when I'm doing these highlights again, I'm adding white and water, so I'm thinning it out. Okay, and if you can add a few more extra highlights in there on your jar, it just kind of goes a long way to making it look very reflective. So that's a few more highlights than the original jar has, but I'm okay with it. Let's see, highlights make the painting, so where else do I want to highlight? One right there, one right there, one right here, one right there, there again, a few more there. Maybe I'll just punch up those highlights on that lemon, a few more over there. Maybe I'll do another one right down here at the bottom of the glass. Okay. Maybe another one right about there. Straighten out that blue line. So at this point, I think I want to do a second coat on my background bottom. And that's my brown, where it was getting a little too transparent. It was just not covering very, very thoroughly. And like I was saying earlier, one way to fix that would be to add white to the brown. I chose not to because I wanted to keep my brown fairly dark. Although this time around, if it's not covering, I will most certainly 100% add white to it. But look at that, second coat, covering. See that? Isn't that nice? That's something, huh? So notice how I put the first coat was still thin. You can't add thicker paint hoping it'll cover because it doesn't work that way. You have to add thin multiple layers. Okay, so the first layer was thin, it dried, and now I'm adding a second thin layer, and you see how nicely it's covering? Okay, so what I'm going to do this time through is just lay down my base coat again, and then we're going to have some other colors to throw in there, like some shadows. We're gonna have some shadows like underneath our lemons here, so they don't look like they're floating away. And I haven't added black yet, and I might not. Really, really might not. I think I might just add my shadows with blue. Ooh, what if I added my shadows with turquoise? Maybe I will. Like I said, I'm not the original artist of this painting, so I'm really not 100% sure what colors she used on it. Well, I know it was one of the 6 colors in your kit. I know that's a fact. Okay, spinning her around again, so I get that last line. All right, now I'm going to start looking at some of those shadows, and I'm going to do it. I'm going to try some turquoise in here and see. You know what though? That didn't work. That didn't work. Look what happened. It made it lighter. The brown is already darker than the turquoise, so turquoise cannot be used as a shadow color. The blue might though, so I'll just take some more blue. And if you remember, there's blue in this brown mix anyway. Yeah, that's not enough, is it? Nope, not enough of a difference. So I'll take my blue, wiping the paint out of my brush now. Not dunking it in the water, but just, you know, just wiping it off in the paper towel, getting some of that brown and whatever my pretend shadow color was there. Now I'm going to use just pure blue, just blue. And now this background is pretty wet, so it might not really stick to it. So I have to lay it on a little bit thicker to get it to stick to the canvas. Because thicker paint will stick to thinner paint, whether you want it to or not. There you go, I'm just taking some pretty darn thick blue. Just laying it down there right under that, right under the lemon, under my leaves, next to my jars. Okay, yeah, just give it a little blend there. All right, so that is looking about ready, you think? Got some nice colored blotches in here now too with that blue. Actually, I don't mind that at all. Ooh, now I kind of want some turquoise blobs on the bottom. How about just a little, like a little up in here? I mean, color reflects color after all, right? We'll just get a little color down in there. Why not? Have fun with it. This is your painting. And I feel like this isn't really dark enough in there. We'll try that one more time. Now I have that brown color. The brown again is made up of just yellow, red, and blue. That's it, nothing else. And nope, hate it. So let's see, I'm gonna need a little more yellow. There. Oh, yellow. There, is that dark enough? A little darker, yeah, that's okay. Again with the blob blob. Blub 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 blub. Yeah, do we need that color anywhere else? I'm leaving it blobby because remember, we have that, that nice texture. I'll just add a couple of other spots down in here. We can't just throw a piece of color one place and not use it anywhere else. That's just nonsense. So you have to kind of use it a couple of other places. Just to make it look like it belongs there. Let's call it continuity. How's that? Is that better or worse? Ah. Kind of an interesting color though, so I think I'll use a little more of it. Besides, I like the contrast. Contrast makes a picture. Oh no, highlights make a picture. What's the difference? Highlights and contrast make a picture. Bland pictures are bland. Okay, I don't really want to mess with that one too much. Don't think I want to mess with this one too much. Okay, okay. Ooh, gonna rinse that brush a little better. So I'm thinking my colors got dulled a little too much. So I maybe want to just go in with a pure yellow and just kind of go right over the top of it. A thin yellow, right? Maybe a transparent watery yellow. Just taking a little bit, and I can just kind of go right. I just want to punch up that color a little bit. I feel like it's, I know it's a lemon, you know it's a lemon, but it lost its lemoniness. There. Maybe, maybe, maybe. Okay. And all this is just details. This is just, you know, you can mess around with this as long as you want, once you get down to the last little details. But this is meant to be the challenging painting, so it's probably going to take you a little longer on this than on the others. And actually, if your brushes don't survive this painting, you'll get new ones next month in your next box. Yeah. I like it. That is good. Gonna make another little tiny touch here, trying to do it without sticking my arm in the paint. Gonna bring back some lemony lemon. Yeah, yellows. And where is my flats? My little flat. I've used up pretty much every brush on the pile here, just about. There's my little flat. So one thing that's bugging me about this lemon is that sharp corner. Not a fan of the sharp corner. Gonna dull it down a little. Sure, some lemons can have sharp corners, but not mine. Not my lemon. All right, so now I have this this leaf down here in the corner, which is a little hard to tell that it's a leaf right now because it kind of faded really into the background. So I'm going to take my blue. So I'll go back to the blue and the yellow, right? Because that's my green. That was my green, was the blue and the yellow. And mixing off screen here again. So I'm just gonna take my blue, yellow, and I'm mixing that into a little puddle of teal. So I want that teal to brighten it right up, and some white to brighten it right up. If that doesn't brighten up, I'm gonna add more yellow. I'm gonna brighten the bright out of this. Bright. See, that's better. Again, just gonna scribble on a little bit of too much paint. Scribble a little highlight there. You can see it now, can't you? Okay, good job. Going back to a smaller brush. And then I'll take this more blue, more yellow. So I'm going back to that dull dark green. More yellow. Okay, dull dark green. Heck, why not even take some of that brown? You've already got the brown mixed up, right? Well, I do. I made a lot of brown. So there we are. There's my dark dull green. And then I'll add a little shadow down there. Whoop, water. Thin it a little. There, add some lines in there. Okay, that's probably overboard. I'm adding turquoise to my mint leaf, but you know what? It's my painting. And I like turquoise. All right, so I think my mint leaves that were up in the top disappeared a little bit. I might just let them be gone. I wasn't that big of a fan of them anyway. Okay, there, a little bit there. They came back. So it looks like I've got a light area here. Don't worry about that. That's because acrylic paint, while it's wet, is lighter and it dries darker. So this, while it appears to be light right now, it will dry dark and it will dry the same color as that background. So that's another thing to keep in mind when you're working with your colors, is if it looks the right color when you put that on your palette or you put that on your canvas, it's probably wrong. If it looks right, it's probably wrong. Which isn't very helpful, right? We wanna know what we're doing right from the start. That'll come with practice. And that'll come with using your paint. In the meantime, just kind of trust that your paints are going to end up a lot darker than you expect them to be, about this much darker. So is that 10%, do you think? 10% darker? There, maybe a little touch of red, because you know what? We don't have a lot of red. There's just a little bit of red in the straw. Okay, I should stop there. One thing I want to fix up. Okay, so here I am. I'm just futzing with it after I tell you this should only take you 90 minutes. And how long has it been? Yeah, it's been an hour. It's been an hour and 2 minutes since I started recording, so. But one thing, like these straight lines, so I'm not very good at straight lines, not at all. And that bugs me. To see that line that's crooked like that bugs me. So get out a little white. And I'm getting new colors this time, new white, new yellow, because I'm trying to match my lemonade. And I don't have any pure colors left on my plate except for turquoise, which is not what I'm after. So I'm just gonna take that white and that yellow. Way too much paint on the brush right there. There. I'm just going to try and straighten that out a little bit. And just try to keep in mind, as you're making straight lines, just use your big brush for it. Use your big flat brush. That's what it's for. It's for straight lines. And covering large areas with paint, but mostly for straight lines. And it's always for straight lines. Okay, that I'm happy with. Again, it's looking lighter, it'll dry darker, it's going to be fine. So that's much better. Is there anything else I can make an adjustment to? And you really want to know the truth. That's why this painting is the most challenging. I mean, sure, it's got a little color mixing, sure, it's got a little color matching, blending. The real reason that this one is the most challenging painting of the month is because of all the straight lines. And with those curves, you know, if you get your curves wrong, your jar doesn't look like a jar. All right, I'm just going to take a tiny little color reflects color after all. Just darkening down that one side. For some reason, it seemed like it was sticking out a little too much. As you're painting, there's a trick you can do. You could take a picture of your painting and then look at the picture on your phone. And if you see any adjustments there that need to be made, go ahead and make them. Or you can turn your painting upside down, turn it sideways. You can just walk away from it, just plain walk away from it. That's a really, really good way to call it a second opinion, even though it's your own second opinion. But if you just get up and walk away and look at it from across the room, then it's going to be really easy to see the different shapes and to see if it's light enough, dark enough, if there's anything that needs to be adjusted. Easy to see from across the room. All right, I mean, I can still see a few things that I would like to make adjustments to, but I'm not really sure it's going to be beneficial to do that at this point. So I think I'm going to call it done. Just gonna add a little brown there, because we're probably going to pick up reflections from our background, from our brown background too. Okay, that's the little adjustment that I wanted to make. All right, so I'm gonna go with this, and then I am Shanna Kramer with Creatively Uncorked. This has been Summer Lemonade from CreativeBoxLIVE, and we will join you next week, next month, next year. As long as you keep your subscription, you do get to keep your low introductory price. So and you always have access to these videos for as long as you're a member. So thank you for joining us. Thank you for painting along, and I'll see you next time.